The morning sun filtered through my Denver apartment windows, creating a warm glow on the hardwood floors. I sipped coffee, reflecting on how peaceful my life had become since escaping that toxic relationship with Amanda. 2.5 years of rebuilding had led to this moment with a solid job, a comfortable home, and Jenna, my girlfriend, who showed me what healthy love feels like. The unexpected knock at my door seemed innocent enough. But when I opened it, my blood ran cold. Amanda stood there, a baby in her arms, eyes simultaneously desperate and determined. Her first words, "You need to take responsibility for what you did to me." Before I dive into this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever had someone from your past suddenly reappear and turn your world upside down. I met Amanda when we were both working at a digital marketing agency in Seattle. I was 28, she was 26, and we connected instantly over our shared passion for creative campaigns and ambitious career goals. Our cubicles were across from each other, and what started as coffee breaks turned into lunch dates then, after work, drinks, and eventually weekend getaways. The first 6 months seemed perfect, like we were living in one of those romantic comedies where everything just clicks. We took weekend trips to the San Juan Islands, introduced each other to our friend groups, and spent nights talking about our future together. I remember thinking I had finally found someone who understood me completely. But like storm clouds gathering on the horizon, red flags began appearing. At first, they were so subtle, I barely noticed them. Amanda would text me repeatedly whenever I went out with my friends. If I mentioned a female coworker in passing conversation, her smile would tighten, and she would ask probing questions about my relationship with them. "Why did Jessica email you directly instead of including me in the thread?" she would ask, referring to a completely innocent work correspondence. "Is that the third time this week you have talked to Stephanie at the water cooler?" she once questioned, after seeing me having a 2-minute conversation about a client project. Her jealousy intensified over time. She started calling multiple times during guys' nights, claiming she just wanted to say goodnight, but then keeping me on the phone for 30 minutes. If I was friendly with waitresses or store clerks, she would accuse me of flirting and give me the silent treatment for hours afterward. There were also small inconsistencies in stories about her past relationships. Sometimes her ex was controlling and manipulative. Other times, she painted herself as the heartbreaker who left because he was too boring. Details would shift depending on what point she was trying to make in our current conversation. Despite these warning signs, when Amanda suggested moving in together, after 8 months, I agreed. I convinced myself that living together would strengthen our relationship and perhaps ease her insecurities. Instead, it revealed even more concerning behaviors. I would wake up in the middle of the night to find her scrolling through my phone while I slept. If I questioned her about it, she would turn it around on me, asking what I was trying to hide and why I did not trust her. Whenever I planned nights out with friends, dramatic arguments would mysteriously erupt just hours before I was supposed to leave. These fights would escalate until I felt forced to cancel my plans to resolve things with her. After a while, my friends stopped inviting me altogether. Amanda had a particular talent for manipulation. She would twist situations to make me feel guilty for completely normal activities. If I wanted to visit my parents for the weekend, she would remind me of some obscure comment my mother had made months ago that supposedly showed my mom did not like her. If I stayed late at work, she would suggest I was choosing my job over our relationship. The gaslighting became a regular occurrence. We would have entire conversations about important topics like finances or future plans, and days later she would completely deny they ever happened. She would look at me with such genuine confusion that I started to question my own memory and sanity. As months passed, I found myself increasingly isolated from friends and family. People who had been constants in my life for years slowly disappeared. As I canceled plans, missed birthdays, and stopped returning calls. My world shrunk until it revolved entirely around appeasing Amanda and trying to avoid her emotional outbursts. The stress began affecting my work. I missed deadlines, zoned out during meetings, and made careless mistakes. My supervisor called me in for a performance review, warning that if things did not improve, my position might be in jeopardy. Around our one-year anniversary, I started noticing strange text messages appearing on Amanda's phone from our boss, Michael. Nothing explicit, but the familiar tone and inside jokes suggested a level of intimacy that went beyond professional. When I casually mentioned them, Amanda became defensive, accusing me of spying on her and not trusting her. For weeks, my suspicion grew as Amanda began working late, more frequently. She would come home with stories about client emergencies or system issues that needed immediate attention. But when I offered to bring her dinner at the office, she always had an excuse for why that would not work. One night after she texted that she would be working late again, something inside me snapped. I drove to our office building around 10 p.m., half expecting to find the place dark and empty, proving my paranoia wrong. Instead, I saw two cars in the parking lot, Amanda's Honda and Michael's Tesla. The security guard knew me well enough to let me in without question. As I walked down the darkened hallway toward our department, I heard muffled sounds coming from Michael's office. The door was slightly ajar, and through that narrow opening I saw them together on his desk, clothes disheveled, completely unaware of my presence. I did not confront them. I did not scream or make a scene. I simply walked away, my entire body numb with shock. That night, I did not return to our apartment. I stayed in a hotel, staring at the ceiling, until morning, feeling my heart crumbling inside my chest. The next day, I made the decision that would change everything. I emptied my savings account, quit my job via email, packed what I could fit in my car while Amanda was at work, and left Seattle without a word to anyone. I ghosted her, completely blocking her number and all social media accounts. I just disappeared, unable to face the humiliation and betrayal that had become my life. My first 3 months in Denver were some of the hardest of my life. I found a small studio apartment in a neighborhood that was far from luxurious but affordable enough for my dwindling savings. The walls were thin enough that I could hear my neighbors' arguments. The water pressure was inconsistent at best, and the view from my single window was of a brick wall. But it was mine, and more importantly, it was unknown to Amanda. I worked odd jobs to make ends meet, while applying for marketing positions. Coffee shop barista, in the mornings food delivery driver, in the evenings occasional weekend gigs setting up for events. Nothing that utilized my skills or education, but jobs that paid cash and helped stretch my savings a little further. Despite the physical distance I had put between us, anxiety about Amanda finding me remained constant. I would jolt awake from nightmares where she was standing over my bed or waiting for me outside my workplace. I changed my email address, got a new phone number, and even considered changing my name. Paranoia became my default state. Trust issues affected every interaction I had. When a woman at the coffee shop made friendly conversation, I analyzed her words for hidden agendas. When a potential employer seemed too interested in my background, I worried they had somehow connected with Amanda or Michael. I built walls around myself that were nearly impenetrable. My breakthrough came 4 months after arriving in Denver. A boutique marketing firm took a chance on me as a junior strategist. The pay was less than I had made in Seattle, and the title was a step down, but it was a foot back in the door of my actual career. My new boss, Laura, was straightforward and professional. Nothing like Michael with his charming smile and wandering eyes. With regular paychecks came the ability to start therapy. My therapist, Dr. Winters, specialized in trauma and relationship issues. Our weekly sessions were painful but necessary, as I unpacked the manipulation and emotional abuse I had experienced. He helped me recognize patterns and red flags I had missed, and slowly, I began to understand that what happened was not my fault. As months passed, I established a simple routine. Work during the day, gym, and the evenings therapy on Thursdays. I started making casual friends at the local fitness center. Nothing deep yet, just workout partners and nodding acquaintances. It was progress, small steps toward reconnecting with the world. The Colorado mountains became my sanctuary. Every other weekend I would drive into the Rockies with my camera exploring trails and capturing landscapes. Something about the vastness of those mountain vistas helped put my problems in perspective. Behind my camera lens, focusing on natural beauty, rather than personal pain, I found moments of peace. My professional reputation gradually rebuilt itself. Projects went well. Clients were satisfied. And 6 months into the job, I received my first compliment from Laura, a woman not known for giving praise easily. Little by little, I reclaimed my confidence in my work abilities. Almost exactly 1 year after leaving Seattle, I attended a regional marketing conference representing our firm. That is where I met Jenna. She was a content creator for a nonprofit, smart and engaging during panel discussions, with a genuine smile that reached her eyes. When she approached me after my presentation on digital strategy for small businesses, our conversation flowed easily. "Your approach to authentic messaging really resonated with me," she said. "So many marketers forget there are actual humans on the receiving end of their campaigns." Coffee after the conference turned into dinner the following week, and soon we were seeing each other regularly. But my past made me cautious, reluctant to open up completely. When Jenna asked about previous relationships, I gave vague answers about growing apart and wanting different things. The truth felt too raw, too shameful to share. Jenna never pushed. She respected my boundaries with a patience I had never experienced before. When I canceled plans last minute due to sudden anxiety, she did not make me feel guilty. When I grew quiet during conversations that veered too close to my past, she gently changed the subject. Her respect for my space allowed me to gradually lower my defenses. Trust rebuilt slowly between us through consistent honesty about small things. If she said she would call at 7, she called at 7. If she promised to save me leftovers from dinner with her friends, they would be waiting in her fridge labeled with my name. These seemingly minor acts of reliability laid the foundation for deeper trust. As our relationship developed, we created healthy patterns together. We maintained separate apartments and independent social lives while still making time for each other. We communicated clearly about expectations and needs without manipulation or guilt. For the first time, I understood what a balanced relationship could feel like. After 2 years in Denver, my life had transformed. I received a promotion to senior marketing strategist, with a substantial raise. I moved from my tiny studio to a 1-bedroom apartment in a better neighborhood, with actual water pressure and a view of a small park instead of a brick wall. Jenna and I had tentatively begun discussing moving in together, though we both agreed to take that step slowly. I even reconnected with some family members, calling my parents monthly and visiting my sister in Phoenix for Thanksgiving. The walls I had built began to have doorways, allowing selected people back into my life. That Saturday morning started like any other weekend day. I woke early, made coffee, and sat by my window, watching joggers traverse the park paths. I had plans to meet Jenna for lunch, followed by an afternoon at a local art festival. The weather was perfect. My job was secure. My relationship was healthy. I felt, for perhaps the first time in years, genuinely content. Then came the knock that changed everything. The sound echoed through my apartment like a gunshot, unexpected and jarring on a quiet Saturday morning. When I opened the door, time seemed to fold in on itself, collapsing the 2.5 years of healing into nothing. Amanda stood in my hallway, looking both familiar and strange simultaneously. Her hair was shorter, her face slightly thinner than I remembered, but her eyes held the same intensity that once captivated and later terrified me. In her arms was a baby, perhaps 8 or 9 months old, with wispy blonde hair and curious eyes that studied me without understanding the complicated history unfolding before them. Are you going to invite us in or just stand there staring? Amanda asked, her voice carrying that familiar edge of demand, disguised as a question. Before I could properly respond, she pushed past me into my apartment, the scent of her perfume still the same, after all this time, triggering a cascade of unwanted memories. The baby fussed in her arms, perhaps sensing the tension that suddenly filled the room. "How did you find me?" I managed to ask, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. Amanda ignored the question, instead surveying my apartment with calculating eyes. "Nice place. Better than I expected, after the way you ran off." The baby began to cry more insistently, the sound cutting through the surreal atmosphere. I watched frozen as Amanda bounced the child, gently murmuring soft reassurances that contrasted sharply with the hard look she gave me over the baby's head. "This is Sophie," she finally said. "She needs to meet her father figure." The deliberate phrasing sent a chill down my spine. Father figure, not father. Even in my shocked state, the distinction registered. "Amanda, I have not seen you in over 2 years. That child cannot possibly be mine." I stated the obvious, trying to ground myself in logic as my emotions threatened to spiral. "Of course, she is not biologically yours," Amanda replied with a dismissive wave. "She is 9 months old. Do the math. But that does not change your responsibility." She reached into her diaper bag and pulled out a photo album, thrusting it toward me. "Here, you should see what you missed." My hands trembled as I flipped through pages, documenting a pregnancy and early months of life that had nothing to do with me. Amanda narrated each photo with pointed comments about how difficult everything had been, how alone she had felt, how unfair life had become. The calculated emotional manipulation was so familiar, it made my stomach turn. "After you abandoned me without a word, I had no one," she said, voice catching, in a way I once would have found heartbreaking. "And then I discovered I was pregnant. If you were pregnant after I left, then the baby is Michael's," I said, finally finding my footing in this bizarre conversation. Amanda's expression hardened. "Michael left when I told him about the pregnancy. He said it would ruin his career, his marriage. He gave me some money for an abortion and blocked my number." "That is terrible, Amanda. Truly. But I do not see what it has to do with me." "You owe me," she said simply. "You left without a word, without closure, without giving me a chance to explain. You disappeared when I needed you most. Now, I need your help." The audacity of her statement left me momentarily speechless. She took advantage of my silence to lay out her demands: financial support for her and Sophie, occasional babysitting so she could get back on her feet, help finding a job in Denver. "I cannot just find work in Seattle anymore," she explained. "Too many bridges burned after everything with Michael. But you seem to be doing well here. You could help us start over." My mind raced with confused, defensive thoughts. Part of me felt an unwanted pang of sympathy for the innocent child caught in this situation. Another part recognized the familiar patterns of manipulation unfolding before me. "How did you even find me?" I asked again, more forcefully this time. Amanda smiled, a cold expression that did not reach her eyes. "You should really check your privacy settings on LinkedIn, Floyd. And maybe tell your old college roommate not to tag your location on social media when he visits you." The violation of having been tracked down sent a wave of nausea through me. But Amanda was not finished. "I know where you work now. Boutique agency, right? Senior strategist sounds impressive. And Jenna seems nice from her photos. How long have you been together?" "A year more." Each piece of information about my new life from her lips felt like a physical blow. She had been watching me, studying my rebuilt existence from afar before making her move. "You cannot just show up here and threaten me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Threaten?" Amanda's eyes widened with practiced innocence. "I am just stating facts. I could reach out to Jenna, tell her some interesting stories about our relationship. I wonder if you have told her everything. Or I could contact your employer. Abandonment issues might make them question your reliability. That would be slander, I countered. You have no legal claim on me. Emotional abandonment, she replied smoothly. There are lawyers who would take that case, especially with a single mother involved. It would not matter if I won. The process alone would disrupt your carefully constructed new life. As she spoke, Sophie continued to fuss, clearly uncomfortable with the tension in the room. Amanda absently rocked her while maintaining unwavering eye contact with me. I've been watching you for weeks, she admitted casually. Your morning runs in the park on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Coffee at that little shop on 7th Street. Dinner with Jenna last Friday at the Italian place on Boulevard. You seem to really enjoy the tiramisu. The revelation that she had been observing my daily routines made my skin crawl. My private life had been under surveillance. My movements tracked my safe spaces, mapped by someone I had fled from. Then came the statement that broke through any remaining confusion about her true nature. I chose you because you were always easy to control, and I need someone controllable right now. The words hit me like ice water, shocking and clarifying. In that moment, looking at her calculated expression, I saw with perfect clarity what had taken me months of therapy to understand. Amanda had never loved me. I had been selected and manipulated for what I could provide, nothing more. Amid the chaos swirling in my apartment, something shifted inside me. The panic and shock receded just enough for clarity to take its place. This was not the same Floyd who had fled Seattle in the middle of the night, too broken to stand his ground. The person standing before Amanda now had spent 2 years rebuilding himself from the foundation up. With deliberate calm, I reached for my phone on the coffee table, casually tapping the recording app while maintaining eye contact with Amanda. The red indicator light confirmed. It was capturing everything. I think we need to be very clear about something, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. I am not responsible for you, for Michael's child, or for the choices either of you made. Amanda's expression flickered with surprise. She had clearly expected the same malleable, conflict-avoidant person she had once known. You do not get to disappear for years and then show up making demands. I continued. The legal threats you are making have no basis in reality. We were never married. I have no biological connection to your child, and I owe you nothing. You cannot just dismiss me like this, she replied, voice rising. After everything we shared, what we shared was a relationship you manipulated from the beginning. I see that clearly now. I moved toward the door, opening it wide. I need you to leave. This conversation is over. Amanda did not budge, instead shifting Sophie to her other hip. You always were a coward, Floyd, running away when things got difficult. You will help me, or I will make sure everyone in your new life knows exactly what kind of person you really are. And what kind of person is that? I asked quietly. Someone who removed himself from a toxic situation. Someone who rebuilt his life on healthier foundations. Go ahead and tell people. I am not ashamed of my journey. Her face contorted with anger as she realized her usual tactics were not working. I will go to your precious Jenna first. I have quite a story to tell her about how you treated me. Jenna knows about my past. I lied smoothly, buying myself time, including how I left Seattle. There is nothing you can tell her that would surprise her. It was a calculated risk, but one I needed to take. Amanda's expression confirmed I had struck a nerve, removing one of her perceived points of leverage. And as for my workplace, I continued. Threatening to interfere with someone's employment is actually illegal, as is harassment, which is what this visit constitutes. You are threatening me now. Her voice rose sharply, causing Sophie to begin crying again. I am setting boundaries. There is a difference. I stood firm, holding the door. I will ask one more time. Please leave, or I will call the police. For a moment, I thought she might escalate further. Instead, she moved toward the door, pausing just before stepping into the hallway. This is not over, Floyd. I found you once. I can make your life very difficult. Goodbye, Amanda, I replied, closing the door firmly behind her and engaging both locks. My hands shook as I saved the recording and immediately called a lawyer friend from my gym. The conversation was brief, but reassuring. His advice was clear: document everything, file for a temporary restraining order, and inform relevant parties about potential harassment. Next, I called Jenna. My heart raced as I waited for her to answer, fearing this intrusion from my past might poison what we had built together. When her voice came through the line warm and familiar, I forced myself to be completely honest. Something happened this morning that I need to tell you about, I began. My ex from Seattle showed up at my apartment. There is a lot about that relationship and how it ended that I have never shared with you. Over the next hour, I told her everything: the emotional abuse, the cheating, my decision to ghost, rather than confront the rebuilding of my life in Denver. And finally, Amanda's appearance today with her child and her demands. When I finished, the silence on the other end of the line terrified me. Then Jenna spoke. "Thank you for trusting me with this," she said softly. "It explains so much about some of your reactions when we first started dating. I wish you had felt safe enough to tell me sooner, but I understand why you did not. The relief was overwhelming. You are not upset at you. No. At this woman for what she put you through and for showing up to threaten you. Absolutely." Her voice was firm with protective anger. "What can I do to help?" With Jenna's support, I contacted building security to alert them about Amanda. Then I called my supervisor to request a brief meeting Monday morning. Being proactive was better than waiting for Amanda to make good on her threats. To my surprise, my employer was understanding and supportive. They increased security protocols for our floor temporarily and assured me that any contact from Amanda would be directed to their legal department. The temporary restraining order was granted within days, though I continued to check over my shoulder for weeks, half expecting to see her watching from a distance. My therapist helped develop coping strategies for the renewed anxiety, reminding me that facing the situation was healthier than running from it. A month after her appearance, I learned through a mutual connection that Amanda had attempted similar manipulation tactics with 2 other ex-boyfriends before tracking me down. Apparently, when I stood firm, she had moved on to easier targets. The entire experience, while initially traumatic, ultimately proved empowering. I had faced my past instead of running from it. I had maintained boundaries that the old Floyd would have surrendered immediately. I had been honest with the important people in my life and discovered they respected me for it. The healing process continued, but now, with a deeper understanding of my own resilience. The nightmares that briefly returned after Amanda's visit gradually faded again. Jenna and I grew closer through the crisis, our relationship strengthened by the honesty it forced. Looking back now, I realize the most important lesson was not about Amanda or even relationships in general. It was about the futility of running from problems rather than facing them. Ghosting had seemed like self-protection at the time, but it had only postponed an inevitable confrontation. By disappearing, I had given away my power to shape the narrative and stand up for myself. I also learned the transformative power of vulnerability. Opening up to Jenna about my past had not driven her away as I feared, but had instead created a deeper bond between us. Being honest with my employer had not cost me my job, but had generated support and protection. The boundaries I learned to establish with Amanda became templates for healthier boundaries in all relationships. I stopped being the person who would do anything to avoid conflict, instead becoming someone who could calmly state his needs and limits. Most importantly, I stopped defining myself by my mistakes or by what had been done to me. The shame I had carried for years, both about staying in a toxic relationship too long and about how I left it, gradually dissolved. In its place grew a gentle pride in the person I had become, someone who could face his fears directly instead of fleeing from them. 2 years after Amanda appeared at my door, Jenna and I are engaged. We talk openly about our past experiences, good and bad, and how they shaped us. The future we are building together is based on mutual trust and respect, rather than control or manipulation. Sometimes life's hardest moments become the foundation for our greatest strength. Have you ever had to confront someone from your past who tried to manipulate you? Share your experience in the comments below, and let me know how you handled it. Remember to like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming manipulation, and share with anyone who might be struggling with toxic relationships. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, you are stronger than your past.